Venetian Snares continues to experiment with interesting sounds, but seldom forms an interesting track.
This has often been the case. I love his ideas, combining symphonic music with breakbeats, the melting of childhood innocence in one scary package, sampling sex noises and making an R-rated conceptual breakcore album with fellow producer Hecate. These are genius ideas, but whether or not he manages to create dynamic and diverse, or maybe just perhaps in general, captivating music with them for a full-length project is often hard to predict. Still, the man's work is fascinating and well worth a dig into for some pretty interesting approaches to breakcore and IDM.
This new album here with a ridiculously long but awesome title is categorized under the genre Flashcore. But before I dig into the music, what exactly is Flashcore?
Flashcore isn't too far off from breakcore and speedcore, genres that use cut-up breakbeats and noises that are sequenced at very high tempos, often sounding like they're cutting into your eardrums like very sharp blades or bits of rapidly moving machinery. However, Flashcore is a subgenre of this kind of music that takes this to the next level, just being far more intense. Hence its Flash-associated name given. Let's just say you won't be dancing to this one at the clubs real soon.
I would like to warn anyone unfamiliar with Venetian Snares that this is definitely the man's most inaccessible and strangest work thus far, at least from a compositional standpoint. Any sense of rhythm or form or structure is crumbled away, and it seems this album is trying to focus more on creating a mood or an atmosphere.
And yet, despite how exciting that could be, how much I expect something overwhelmingly visceral and jarring as I have heard on records like Ross and Doll Doll Doll, a lot of this is very underwhelming. At first I was intrigued to hear where this sound could go, but the thing is, it doesn't really go anywhere. A fair few times we hear digital glitchy noises and sporadic bursts of sputtering percussion, backed by sheets of dark ambient drone. Sometimes a bit of distorted bass pops in, some weird high-pitched digital sounds that sounds like rainfall on a tin roof. Sometimes you'll hear feedback, chiptune-y bleeps and bloops. At times the sounds are panning from one side of the stereo to the other. These are all interesting sounds, but their use is directionless.
Even trying to listen to this album just for the sake of hearing cool sounds, I struggle to stay engaged because a lot of the time it's like Venetian Snares is bringing out an idea and jumping to a new one out of the blue. At times I hear something cool or a little bit frantic that makes me think, ooh, where's this going to go? But then it all stops before scampering onto some other different idea. As such, this album feels scattered, all without a proper core idea in mind, and this makes a lot of the tracks just seem to drag on and on. Or maybe not drag, because this is quite a fast-paced album, but certainly the shtick of the album wears off after a very short while.
Even the most minimal and abstract of music can have a direction. It doesn't have to have a story or an explicit narrative, it just needs to feel like it's taking you somewhere. Not only that, but this album here is also surprisingly tame for Flashcore, in terms of its sounds anyways. It just has so little variation between tracks, and all those sounds I just mentioned are nothing all too new for Venetian Snares. I'm entirely sure that this composition work for the album is strange and complex and haphazard, and even difficult to sequence. But for an artist that has worked with these genres for a long time, I perhaps expect something a lot riskier, especially for an album that is rhythmically and compositionally Venetian Snares' most challenging album yet, which I love the idea of, but it falls so short on many fronts, at least for me, who totally thinks his opinion in the field of flashcore music is a valuable diamond of shimmering advice. The one track I did enjoy a lot was the track Crazy Painted Eyebrows, and that was when the pummeling drum beats just pounded in rapidly. It was genuinely terrifying. The other saving quality of this album could be that cold, wintry atmosphere. It is convincing, and I reckon it was a solid foundation for the mood of this album. However, noticing that also makes me wish that the album just did so much more!
This is why I didn't come out of the album all too pleased, it just got a bit irritating after a while. This is also why my arbitrary numerical verdict, which means less than what I actually said about the content of the album, is a 4 out of 10. But there's one thing this album has going for it, you gotta love those track titles. In fact, let's just read some of them out, shall we? For a good chuckle. Ha ha ha! He was shot by one of Brian's children holding the cats hostage in a cardboard box. Oh.